What is up, guys? Rambling Collector here. So, a lot of you who have watched my channel probably have seen my review of Yoru Sumino's I Am Blue, In Pain, and Fragile. And if you have watched the review in full, you would know that my thoughts and opinions on it are not exactly the highest regard. Let's put it this way. Interesting plot, very bad characters. With the glimmers of a romance, I wasn't exactly sure what this book was trying to tell, but it left me feeling unsatisfied and a little bit frustrated. However, recently I have decided to give Yoru Sumino a chance and tried out one of their latest works, which is what we will be talking about today. So to give a little backstory first, I actually stumbled upon this novel when I was going through my local Barnes & Noble, specifically their manga and light novel section. And I saw this one sticking out, and I realized it was by the same author of I Am Blue, In Pain, and Fragile. And I will not lie to you guys, initially, I was very hesitant to pick this one up because of the bad experience I'd had with one of their novels. I know what you're thinking. That seems a little bit hypocritical or a little biased, and I do agree. But judging by the last book how it left me frustrated, I feel like I might have been justified, but at the same time, I get where you're coming from. But regardless, my curiosity won out, and I purchased the book, primarily for the biggest fact that, one, this has got to be one of the biggest novels I've seen by Yoru Sumino, standing at almost 400 pages by itself, with a total of 397. So yeah, almost 400. So this probably has to be one of their largest works they have done. And initially when I read about it as being a romance, I was a little bit hesitant, wondering if it was going to end the same way. But I will say this much. This novel initially at one point had me disappointed because I thought it was going down the same route once again. But near the tail end of it, it actually managed to turn it around and left me feeling a bit more satisfied than the last work. With that knowledge in mind, I am actually curious to read more of Yoru Sumino's works. Particularly, I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. I know that one sounds a bit cliche, I know the title sounds weird, but hear me out. I've only heard good things about it, both as a movie, but also as a manga as well as a novel. I'm curious to pick up the novel for myself just to see what it's like. So, with that being said, let's get started with the review. Sorry for blabbing a bit there. Anyways, our main character here, Suzuki Kaya, is essentially your typical teenage boy going through high school, but his main argument here is that he is completely bored with his own world. Like, he wants to have something special happen and to break up the monotony of his world, and he really shows this disconnection from a lot of his other classmates, calling them things like Tanaka or Saito, because he can't be bothered to remember their actual names. Which to me, that gave off the bit of, like, really? This dude is kind of an ass. And yes, you would be correct in saying that he is a bit of a jerk. Regardless, I wanted to keep reading. I kept reading. And honestly, it was interesting, especially when it picks up around here. When one time, during one of his runs, Kaya stumbles on this old bus stop that he normally takes a break at for his daily runs, and while there, staying there late at night, he actually stumbles upon a strange sight. What looks like a sentient cloud. And this cloud has like lights in it, which he comes to recognize are fingernails and eyeballs. And listening to this voice speaking from this cloud, he comes to find out that it's a young girl there, whom he does not know the name of, but gives her the name of Chika. And during their conversations, he comes to find out that she is from another world, and her world is constantly plagued by wars. Same as Kaya's. Kaya has been listening throughout the news and has realized that his world is also on the same cusp of war. But, judging from what Chika has told him, the wars in her world are much smaller, more pocket-sized. But they're still just as devastating to the surrounding areas, and even at one point actually striking her hometown. Now, Chica's world is very different. Like, you get the feeling that she has these ethereal human features. For instance, like if it wasn't obvious with the glowing eyes and glowing nails, at one point when she actually gets wounded, she has glowing blood, and even tears also glowing, with the lights in her eyes actually growing dim because of this. But also, as they are discussing something, Kaya and Chika, as they are talking, Chika sometimes has these words that get blurred out. And we have to wonder what exactly it is that she is saying, same as Kaya, which is very intriguing to learn about because she is from another alternate world. So throughout all of this, Kaya and Chika continue their conversations back and forth, even discovering that their worlds are connected in very odd ways. Like if one thing happens on one world, let's say Kaya's, then something similar could happen on Chika's world, for instance. Back to the wound. Initially, Kaya himself had actually been hurt after kicking a tree, and it actually busted up one of his arms. Or I think his leg. Sorry, it's been a while. But then we come to find out that Chika herself was actually bitten by some strange creature, and essentially it means that they have some form of connection. Like if one thing happens to one person, something similar or greater happens to the other. Which I thought was fascinating, actually. This thought of connecting worlds. Sort of a cause and effect. Parallels, if you will. It's a fascinating concept. And I do like how, throughout all this, we see Kaya coming to care for Chika. Like, he has prided himself on keeping distant from everybody, essentially keeping them out of his life, which, in my opinion, kind of sounds a bit either very distant or possibly sociopathic. I'm not entirely sure about human behaviors here, folks. Don't judge me too harshly, please. Anyways, so we come to find out that Chika simply wants to live a normal life. She wants to have the wars in her world be stopped. And Kaya feels for her, and he comes to find out through that connection that Chika in her world has this siren that goes off, which is sacred to her and her people. And every time it goes off, she's forced to go somewhere either home or the wars are over, because throughout all of this we learn that Chika has actually been connected through this bus stop, and by the fact that she is literally in an underground bunker, a wartime bunker, which is a dark prospect to think about when you really stop and really just ponder that for a second. Anyways, Kaya comes to find out that there is a connection between the siren in Chika's world and quite possibly the bell at his school. So what does he do? He goes out of his way to break into his school, bust open the school bell, and then later on, when he gets found out, he does get in trouble for it. Like he actually gets grounded, is forced to write an apology letter to the school. Very minor stuff, honestly, compared to what it could have been. But then, after discussing it with Chika, he comes to find out that the siren in her world has been broken. So somehow, by breaking the school bell, the siren itself has been broken, meaning that the wars in Chika's world end. And for her, she is extremely grateful to Kaya for doing this. However, over the concept of this book, I found it kind of frustrating, but also a little bit ironic, that in Chika's world, there isn't really a concept of romance. And there are many other things in Chika's world that don't make sense. For instance, they have these sorts of mists that create a sensation. Like, for instance, whenever she uses this certain spray, it's like she is back in a sunlight park with trees and sounds and smells and everything else. It operates through the olfactory senses of smell, which I think is fascinating. But one of the biggest reasons as to why Kaya decided to bust open the school bell and therefore break the siren in Chika's world is because during one of the small wars that occurs in Chika's world, her room was actually bombed or blown up, whatever. And this is because during the time in Kaya's world, an airplane part actually breaks through his window, therefore causing a connection bit where Chika's complete room is just blasted open. Anyways, over the concept of this, we see how Chika and Kaya grow to care for one another, even though they can't really touch or talk. Well, mostly all they can do is talk, because Chika cannot write or draw anything, because it will not exist in Kaya's world. Over the course of this, I do like how Kaya is trying to help out Chika to understand romance, like whether it be sharing music with each other, or just teaching her how to kiss, or how to show affection in some way, shape, or form. However, the one thing I have a problem with is that during one moment, Chika slips up and simply states that she is glad she met Kaya first, which implies that there are possibly other gateways into Chika's world, around the whole real world, around reality, I should say. Kaya actually freaks out about this and just keeps on going like, wait a minute, I thought I was special. I thought I was the only one you actually met. Chika tries to defend herself, but then after that she becomes angry with Kaya, because she comes to the very wrong conclusion that essentially Kaya was just pretending with her, pretending to like her, pretending to have feelings for her, trying to teach her romance. And Kaya is completely dumbfounded and unable to defend himself at that point. And quite frankly, I do agree with the fact that at the start, Kaya simply wanted to learn more about Chika's world. He wanted to get something and learn something from her that would probably make his life a little better. But we do see that he does care for her. However, after this argument, Chika leaves, and Kaya and Chika never meet each other again. And then, here's where I had a major issue. The second half of the book. Because it was really well done, building up to this tension, this drama between these two who are from different worlds. However, my biggest issue is the fact that we have a time skip, where apparently years have gone by. Kaya is now a successful businessman, just living his life, but he feels even more disconnected from everybody. Essentially, he goes around putting on this facade, this mask. Like, he knows how to talk to people and how to fake emotions, but he feels nothing. Like, he does not feel connected to anyone. He doesn't really feel any emotions. He feels like he cannot experience romance. And it is for the simple reason that he is still attached to Chika. He still cares about her, but we see how this facade can sometimes crack a little bit, especially after he runs into an old classmate of his named Suno Sanai, or as he called her, Saito. Over the course of the novel, we see how these two essentially start up a relationship, but what really frustrated me was Kaya pretending like this was all an act, like faking it, everything like that, faking all the smiles, the laughter, and just simply saying, you know what, this is just a casual relationship, I don't really feel anything towards this woman, which in my opinion, that's just disgusting. In my honest opinion, that's just like, if you don't care, then why lie about it? Like, at the very least, tell the woman honestly, like, hey, I don't really like you that way. This has just been a convenience for me. At the very least, be honest about it and don't, like, keep pretending and leading this woman on. That is what frustrated me. And yet, I love the part where afterwards, after essentially he comes out and tells Suno Sanai, or Saito, as he continuously calls her, he essentially keeps calling her Saito until, like, the tail end of the book. But after learning about her real name, Suno Sanai, he tells her about Chika, his experience there, how he's still holding on to those feelings he had for Chika. And yet, after their breakup, after they've been disconnected for a few months, Kaya comes to the realization that he doesn't really remember those feelings he had for Chika. He comes to the realization that he has simply forgotten about his feelings for Chika. He has moved on. And throughout all this time, he's been holding on to the feelings he had for her. Note the past tense here. He doesn't feel the emotions he had for Chika back then. He remembers how he had felt, but the emotions are no longer there, if that makes any sense. His heart's not there anymore. He's just been hanging on to this whole thing, being hung up on it for years and years, wasting his life. At one point, he calls Sanai and essentially pretty much demands to find out what she had done to him, whether she had poisoned his memories or done some kind of spell or anything. He's freaking out, having a mental breakdown. And literally, I love how Sanai gives Kaya essentially the whole, you are not as special as you believe. Everybody is special. You are not above everybody, like giving him a whole come to Jesus moment right there. And Kaya has a full-blown meltdown. He's just freaking out about the fact that he has literally forgotten his feelings for Chika. And he's just been wasting his life for years and years, hung up on a girl he had known in high school. And I found that whole scene satisfying because it's finally like he realizes, have I just been a dick this entire time? Have I just been like just a massive jerk to everybody? And yes, he comes to realize that he is not as special as he believes. Everybody is just as special as he is. And he's just been a narcissist the entire time. And I find that wholly satisfying. Especially because Kaya himself is the point of view character. So watching him have this breakdown was, again, satisfying. I'm probably reiterating myself here, and I apologize, but I need to say that again. Anyways, the tail end of this has Kaya, now far more humbled, and Sanai, essentially in a relationship once again. And by this time, I feel like years have gone on, and he is still learning to acknowledge the emotions that he has. He is still learning by Sanai. And I like how Sanai essentially like jabs at him, like saying, I hope I don't become a Saito again, like just jabbing at him a little bit for his previous attitude. And I love it. And once again, this one I feel was satisfying. It has a far more satisfying conclusion because the main character is humbled. He realizes he was wrong. But I don't really like how the plot point of Chika was never really readdressed. It's more of just she was there, and then she wasn't anymore, and he came to forget about the feelings he had once had for her. Which is a sad reality, honestly, because I'm pretty sure a lot of us have had crushes as a child, or even as a teenager. We've had crushes on somebody. We'll remember how much we used to care for them, how much we used to want to give our hearts to them. And yet now that we are older, looking back at it, we just don't feel the same way. And it's a sad reality that that is the case a lot with life. No matter how much you can fondly remember a crush you had in the past, looking back on it, you will not feel as much of an attachment as you did back then. It's a sad, harsh truth, but that's reality. And I like that, how it was more realistic here. So all in all, do I feel more satisfied with this book? Yes. Do I recommend it if you are easily frustrated? No, I do not. It can be frustrating with Kaya's point of view, how he has this narcissistic attitude towards everybody, not even bothering to remember their names and just being like, ugh, this world is boring. I wish something special would happen already just to brighten up my day. You know, just that narcissistic attitude. But I do like how he becomes more humble and more open to people at the tail end of the book. Anyways, I think I've rambled long enough. Let's go to the final score. So in conclusion, I would say that I Will Forget This Feeling Someday is a good 9 out of 10. Definitely higher than my review of I Am Blue, In Pain, and Fragile. But would I recommend this book? Yes. All in all, I felt satisfied with this one. I'll be interested in checking out more of Yoru Sumino's works in the future at some point. But if you all have paid attention for this long, if you all have stuck around for this long, then thank you so much for listening to this crazy man's ramblings. And I hope you all have an awesome day. I hope that my review of this book inspires you to either pick it up or avoid it if it is not up to your tastes. But I will leave that up to you all to decide. Thank you all very much for listening. This is Rambling Collector signing off. Have an awesome day, and keep reading, my friends.